This morning when we opened up, we talked about the fact that this is the second symposium and we've gone international. However, what this is we're going to explain to you right now is the response to last year's symposium, where the overwhelming direction given to CIRI from the attendees and everybody involved was to see if CIRI could set a clean standard in the industry, one that does not exist. Defining clean, developing clean, and most importantly, measuring clean. Now, it's been a while, and there's been a lot of negotiation, a lot of discussion, a lot of planning, a lot of question asking, and so on and so forth. And what we've come up with is certainly some results that indicates, just like the poster says, you can't believe your eyes, only science can see. Now, you've heard that all day today, only science can see. We can't see the micro world that is so damaging to us. Cleaning personnel determine how clean a surface is by visual inspection, no matter how well trained they become. A couple of weeks ago, CIRI and ISSA, the International Sanitary Supply Association, that's under a whole new, the last few years, under a whole new approach to its future and strategic intent in the industry worldwide, entered into an agreement that will in fact have an impact initially on youngsters in schools to identify a clean standard in K through 12. Now this pursuit will not end at schools, but we picked the schools initially. Now, sitting behind me are the individuals directly involved in the negotiation and the conclusion. You've met Dr. Spivak, who is the head of our Science Advisory Council. To his right is John Garfinkel, who is the executive director of the International Sanitary Suppliers Association, or ISSA. And to his right is Bill Balick, who is in the legal affairs of ISSA. And what we want to do is share with you the coming together of the science community on the cleaning side of the industry, and in fact, the trade. That is to say, whatever standards are created, the trade side will begin and help assist in implementation, certification, and so on and so forth. And to kick us off, to give us a little bit more explanation of what this is all about, I'd like to ask Dr. Spivak if he can give us an overview from the science side. I'm then going to ask John to tell us of ISSA's view of things, and Bill will be going into some detail as to structure. Steve, can you lead us off?
Back up again, this time with really an exciting opportunity, which I am confident is building on the types of message that you have heard from the speakers this morning, from our keynote speaker, Dr. Dancer, from the other presenters, and will continue throughout tomorrow and into Thursday morning. In this particular case, the Science Advisory Council, especially under the lead of Dr. Eugene Cole and Jim Harris, support, and others, and speaking with counterparts at ISSA, we've probably spent between 6 months to a year laying out a plan for research that would develop the underpinning, the foundation, and the support leading to clean standards, what is appropriate hygienically in particular environments, and the one that we consider most important to begin is K through 12 schools. So what we have done is we have established a Clean Standards Science Committee. There is a press release that has just gone out this past week, so for those of you, instead of taking voluminous notes, you'll find a press release, I believe, on the ISSA website. It will soon appear on the CIRI website, and it's gone out to all of the media before today, but very recently, announcing this effort where CIRI will take the lead in developing the research, the methodology, the assessments, the field testing tools to develop the science that will support the eventual development of clean standards. And in this Clean Standards Science Committee, I have the honor of sharing responsibilities. Jean Cole will be taking the lead on the science side as research manager. I will be working with Jean and alongside in support as project manager. In addition, Dr. Elizabeth Scott, whom you've seen this morning, also one of the stalwarts of our Science Advisory Committee, equally with tremendous experience in practicology and measurements of hygiene and their assessment. Liz Scott will be working with us on the committee, as will Richard Shaughnessy, who has also joined the committee. In addition, I have recently come back from ISSA Interclean, where I was twice on the program, and got to work and begin to develop a relationship with two very respected European colleagues in the area of science and with both expertise and keen interest in cleaning and health, and that is Dr. Anton Dusterwinkel from TNO, the Dutch National Research Center and Laboratory, all over the Netherlands, but in part centered in Delft, and that was referred to in the previous paper as well. And also Dr. Richard Schilling of the University of Reutlingen in Germany. So they will be, and they have agreed to be affiliates with us from the European side. As Jim Harris said, we are an international organization, and we value the participation and the expertise of other international scientists. So they will be assisting us as well as affiliates, working with us, although at a distance, to see that we are doing the right research that will result in the right conclusions and outcome. That Clean Standards Science Committee, very closely affiliated with CIRI's Science Advisory Council, will also in part be reporting to a joint committee that will be established, is in the process of being established by both CIRI and ISSA. So with that introduction, Jim, may I pass the microphone to John Garfinkel, again in the customary manner. Join me in welcoming John Garfinkel from ISSA.
Thank you, Dr. Spivak. Good afternoon, and I guess my first comment is after listening to this morning's first presentation by Dr. Dancer, it became clear to me that if it wasn't before, the whole concept of cleaning for health is that we're all in this together. And as I look around the room, if I define the group that I have the pleasure to be with today, I would describe us all as very serious cleaning industry enthusiasts. But there's a whole lot of people that aren't here and that have an important interest in the subject at hand here. The time was mentioned by Dr. Spivak that this took 6 to 12 months. I don't know how many of you are familiar with how associations work, but it took a whole lot longer than that. It's a lot. There's a lot of positioning, a lot of meetings, and it goes back a couple of years. I think at least my first conversations with people like Jim and Steve and Bob Robinson. And so I'd like to talk for a second, just introduce a few people, because something like this doesn't happen at an association that quickly. We have a board of directors of many people, a lot of people in our industry from different disciplines, and they change every year. And a lot of them are here, which is a tribute to the process today. So I'd like to recognize Jim Chittum, our current president of ISSA, and Bob Stahersky of Nyco Products, our vice president, who will be our president next year. And going back, we have several leaders in the room who are responsible for us being here today. That this wouldn't have happened without their leadership and the constancy of purpose that happens within ISSA with a change of the leadership on the board every single year. It's hard to keep the ship on course. And I want you to know that it was done real well thanks to several other people in this room. And I'd like to start with Roger Parrott, who is a former president of ISSA, Bobby Cohen of Daycon, seated in the back, Matty Chinks of Avmore in Montreal, Canada, who's been president. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the leadership and constant persistence of Bob Robinson, who he never erred in keeping the ship on course and keeping us on track with the mission that led us to where we are today. What with that recognition, you know, we're really proud to work with CIRI. And one of the things is, I don't know if, you know, when I think about an association, if you wonder, well, why is ISSA doing this? What's our purpose? And if you think about a trade association, some of us have different views about what a trade association is about. I prefer the government definition, oddly enough. I don't usually so much agree with the government decisions all the time, but this one isn't bad, and it's, you know, the way the government looks at a trade association like us, even though every now and then we get a little bit off track, is to make the connection between industry and the public service, the well-being of ourselves as human beings on this planet. And sometimes we get a little bit selfish now and then, but actually that is the recognition of what an association is supposed to be doing. And as I look forward at this project, the one thing that is very apparent is working with a group like CIRI, the scientists, the formidable panel of SAC, the Science Committee, and working with people like Steve and Gene Cole, and all of the people that represent the Science Council, Elizabeth, and you know, I just think that the most important element is maintaining neutrality and independence from prejudice. That one of the primary reasons is this is going to be managed from an ISSA standpoint by the ISSA Foundation rather than the Trade Association, and it's going to be managed by CIRI jointly, and those specifics will come out later. And there's a reason for that, because both are qualified by the government as 501c3s, which makes them charitable institutions. They're governed very closely by the IRS to make sure that their purpose doesn't get off track. And the key thing is that the Science Committee can be independent, that it's not prejudiced by ISSA's interests, by CIRI interests, by the individual member interests, but that it really is an independent study in science. And when you think about it, you know, people can argue, God, you know we spend a lot of money, the manufacturers certainly do, in research scientists to make sure their products are efficacious and all of this, but we really don't know, and that was so clear today, that we really don't know from a health standpoint. I think we all know a lot individually. We're all experienced or we wouldn't be here, but we really don't know. And to have someone like Dr. Dancer get up here, Stephanie, and talk about what she doesn't know is really a great admission that I think we should all fess up to, because we really don't know what's healthy and what isn't, and we all as human beings have perception. So with that, I'd like to end my comments, and I'd like to introduce Bill. Bill Ballack is headed up this project for the development of the strategy and actually brought it forward to the board for the approval of making it happen. And Bill, would you add your comments, please?
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
John was correct. I worked actually as part of a team that pursued the strategic initiative, the goal of which was to make the connection between cleaning and health through scientific research. But I stress, I was just part of a team, and I'd be remiss if I didn't share some of that glory or blame, depending on your perspective, with my associate, Dan Wagner. Dan, why don't you stand up? Those of you who don't know Dan should be aware that he's the director of ISSA's Cleaning Industry Management Standard. And just as an aside, you may not be aware, but both Dan and I are both attorneys, which I don't raise that to brag, but really it all of which begs the question, what strange parallel universe have we entered in which the attorneys are leading a science initiative? In any event, as you might guess, with 2 attorneys leading this project, it took twice as long, resulted in reams of paperwork, dozens of contracts, but the result was good. Ultimately, the output of our process was that we decided to pursue the development of a clean standard. And I think Dr. Dancer said it best this morning in her presentation. I mean, she did a wonderful job in articulating the case for a clean standard. And by a clean standard, what we're really referring to is that benchmark, that value of measure of what is clean, and more importantly, which equates to a healthy indoor environment, one in which the occupants are assured that they're reasonably free from dangers of pathogens, harmful microorganisms, infectious diseases. You know, because the fact is today that more than ever, we're aware of the serious health concerns presented by a variety of infectious microorganisms. You know, but yet in this wonderful age of technology, of cell phones, of laptops, of global positioning devices, how do we tell what's clean? We do it by our senses, by our sight, by our smell. You know, at best, very subjective measures that unfortunately are woefully inadequate. Quite frankly, they're incapable of ensuring that a facility is clean and conducive to the health of its occupants. Stated simply, we lack a universal, quantitative measure that can be shared by all in determining that a building, any given facility, is not only clean, but also in a state that ensures sanitary and healthful conditions for the people that occupy that indoor space. So recognizing that, we believed it to be the role of ISSA and associations to fill that void. In other words, to develop that universal measure of what it is we mean when we say a facility is clean from a health perspective. So that schools, hospitals, and quite frankly, other facilities can use a uniform means of measure, a single universal ruler, if you would, that allows them to go from facility to facility, from room to room, and declare with a reasonable level of assurance that a facility is not only clean to the eye, but also healthy and sanitary for the folks that inhabited it. And really, that's what we mean when we talk of pursuing the establishment of a clean standard. And we anticipate that the outputs of that process will be twofold, or perhaps threefold. The first of which is the identification of a methodology or a device that perhaps ATP tester or whatever it might be, that will actually be used to measure whether or not something is clean or a building is clean. Secondly, a benchmark value, a quantitative unit of measure, a bright line, if you would, that tells us what is and what is not clean and sanitary and healthful conditions. And then thirdly, the potential for certification programs based on those standards. That is the direction that ISSA and CIRI are heading. And let me just wrap it up by saying that in recognizing the need to develop such a standard, ISSA, in my humble opinion, wisely looked to CIRI and the wonderful team of scientists that have been gathered by Jim Harris and his team. We look forward to collaborating with CIRI on this project that is not only important to the cleaning industry, but perhaps more importantly, important to every one of those people our industry touches in facilities around the world. So Jim, I look forward to working with you and your team in the months ahead, and I think it's your turn, sir.
Well, you know, I got to tell you, I'm listening to you talk up here, and you're not the same guy we've been negotiating with for the last... Woo! We've come a long, long way. Where's the guys? We've come a long way from a long time ago. Hey, look, guys, gals, this started out with some ideas. Where's Humphrey? Is Humphrey in the room? Humphrey, and a few of us got together, and our board, where's our board? Our board, stand up, please. We can't let ISSA get all the credit here. Where's the board? We got anybody on the board here? We sure do. Thank you. Well, to the attendees. Are there any questions from the floor that you might want? We can't clarify everything. We're still in some areas of discussion and finalizing some things.
We're looking to collaborate with other scientists, speak with others who would like to participate with us. whether in a direct role through the Clean Standards Science Committee or as affiliates, associates, peer reviewers, or colleagues. So that's an open suggestion to speak with Gene Cole, speak with myself, Jim Harris, and others, because we will be playing a major role in concert with ISSA in really looking at real-world measurements, real-world test methods, things that can be rugged, reliable, and used in the field to assess measures of clean in specific applications, in specific environments, as appropriate in each case. So again, you're a collected body of wisdom. Please give me your ideas. I welcome your input and suggestions.
What kind of timetable is there? And secondly, more importantly, what is the, I guess, the direction and the guidance that we're going to use to try to get this very important standard out to the public? And they're the ones that need to know there is a standard, and that's probably one of the most important things that we articulate.
Yep. Two things. One, although we're making an announcement today, the CIRI Science Advisors have been working for the better part of a year laying out the research plan, which has been developed in part and is maturing as we speak. So we're looking at, we have already working into a first phase that could take 8, 9, 12 months. But some of the future work that's been done is already moving forward. So the answer is it will be done in as quickly a time frame as we can do it that is consistent with good science and solid results. But you're not going to see, science takes time, it takes effort, and it takes money. And that will require time, effort, and money, but I assure you it will be done well and as rapidly as we can. But it's not going to be something that you're going to see in 3 or 6 or months, but it will be in the foreseeable future, and that's our commitment. Ultimately, the answer is to support, one, public health in support of schools and children, and then other environments, and two, to support this industry for those of you who work in the supply and the product development and the facilities, services, building service contractors, to really provide a new measure using solid scientific information and then certification programs to be able to document and validate what you're doing to show where you're doing clean with specific products, equipments, systems, and services, and facilities maintenance, that you actually can demonstrate to your clients, to your customers, to the people who buy your services or products, that what you're doing really makes a difference. And that was clearly shown this morning by Dr. Dancer when you're speaking to hospital administrators or school administrators in Richard Shaughnessy's paper, that simply say, show me that this method of proper cleaning will make a difference in hygiene, in effective control of pathogens in a reasonable level at a reasonable cost. Show us that it will work, and those are the kind of tools that we hope to deliver to you, and then have people who are trained and certified to be able to take those measurements or samples, do that measurements, whether you would do it yourself directly with the proper training, with the proper tools, or you in concert with someone else who's been certified to do that. So that's the ultimate deliverable. We will do it as rapidly as we can, as I said, consistent with really first-class science. I saw Frank Hurd, I think.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Frank, the
Yes.
Carpet and Rug Institute.
Is there any thought process of taking this to the ANSI process to add that additional level of credibility and gravitas to the standard?
There is that possibility, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We anticipate that the standard development process will not actually begin till probably about the third quarter of what we're referring to as phase 2. And it's at that point that we'll gather the appropriate group of stakeholders who will really define the ultimate direction that we take the standards and certification process to.
Bill Griffin, if the ISSA and this group is going to do what the ISSA has done with the SIM standard, I'm certainly impressed with that standard and would think it would turn out to be a real good program. But my question is, do you plan to involve other groups like associations from the education industry and like the IICRC, which has spent like 20 years developing standards?
Yeah, Bill, thanks for that question. I think the question was asked earlier about delivering, how we deliver this to the people that can really utilize it, the facility managers in the various institutions. I think my comment on that is, you know, we're very early in the game here, as you know. We're just getting started in funding this project. But believe me, one of the things I think that we would have a common viewpoint toward is that the cleaning industry is very fragmented. Many organizations comprise the cleaning industry, that, as you know. One of the roles that we think that we can help in is to unify the industry, and it's not only unifying on a global basis, as was mentioned earlier by Steve, but also unifying our industry by market segment, whether it be the hospitals, where we should be coordinating with the American Hospital Association and ASHES, and the food service industry, which has specific needs. So this particular project is focusing right now, and I think it's necessary to get the science going, to K-12 surfaces. It's very specific. It needs to be to have the science, but I see eventually us working with the associations throughout our industry in cooperation and folding them into this if we're going to extend it universally.
What do you see as the involvement of the end user, the janitor, the custodian in all of this? So that it's, I can barely read it, but it says something about how it is we're going to measure it, define it, measure it, and how it's achieved. That's the guy who's putting out the effort every night in the building to do what needs to be done. What are we going to do to make this thing really applicable to those people so that we can use it to train, we can use it to guide? It's all nice that building owners understand some of this stuff, not that they care a lot, but the custodians, the janitors, are really going to care. So what can we do as this thing is being developed so that we don't come in as an afterthought on this thing and somebody says, here you are, here's your standard? Because quite frankly, I have some very strong opinions. You might not know that, but I have some fairly strong opinions on the idea of what cleaning and all this is and how we should define it, and also how we should use it for our people so that they're beyond the idea of a trained ape dumping baskets. They're skilled people going in and they're making examinations. They're doing what they can with the tools that they have at this juncture. What is our involvement? What can it be?
Is there a time limit on these questions? No, and Lynn, that dovetails very, very nicely with Bill's question, actually. And to answer both of them is that we do anticipate bringing in all appropriate stakeholders at the appropriate time, including those who actually engage in the cleaning process, as well as the consumers of those services, whether it be the educational institutions, the hospitals, but certainly engaging those who specifically perform the cleaning services would definitely be stakeholders that we would seek the involvement.
There's two profound groups of people that are going to be affected. The population of the schools, absolutely. And in order to get to that level, equipment manufacturers, product manufacturers, material manufacturers, service contractors, trainers, people who write documents and manuals and set standards and so on and so forth. It's for the cleaner, it's for the population. That's what the standard is for, so that we absolutely reach that level. Your question is right on, and that's where it all ends up. All this stuff that we've heard about of all the people and all the capabilities in the industry, it's got to get to the floor through the people you're talking about. Big part of it.
Yeah. I might just add to that. When I referred to the actually 33 years that I have and continue to have the great joy of working with the cleaning industry through the Restoration Industry Association and other companion associations, I come into this portion of the business learning more and more about the custodial, the cleaning technician side of the business, and hearing and recognizing not only the value of the first line people who are doing that work day, and as I say, by day and by night, as you well know, but also the challenge which every one of you face of empowering those people, knowing how valuable they are the deliverables, and giving them a way to empower them, to make them feel better, feel and know that they are really making a difference, as we saw in examples from Michael Rollins' paper about those particular examples. I believe leading to measurement methods, assessment methods, and then not just standard operating procedures, but a really rigorous, clean standard, and people who are certified to test to those standards, can really demonstrate to the people who are doing the work, not just with an eyeball check or someone comes through with a checklist or someone says, were you on the job last night, but really showing that we can make a difference by scientific measurements. Science can see those measurements, and ultimately, in my opinion, that will filter itself down to the people on the line, the cleaning technicians, the janitorial maintenance, the care and facilities managers, some of which are here, to really know that they are making a difference and that we rely on them, and hopefully that will begin to further empower that critical portion of our industry, that labor supply that does the work. So I really believe we have an opportunity in the long run to begin to make that change of adding to the empowerment.
Steve, I think you'll agree with me. As we went through the meetings and the negotiations, we had questions. ISSA had questions. There was an awful lot of consultancy going on in both organizations. There was some very frank meetings. In the early discussions back into 2007, one of the important things that we discovered, there was a mutual respect and a community of spirit. We both recognized the importance of this, and we both recognized the uniqueness of each organization being able to put this partnership together. And I will assure you, it is a partnership. I will assure you that it has been well conceived through agreements and various other sources, and we are in the process right now of putting some architectural and strategic plans for the future. This has a very long run when we start moving from K-12 into whatever other types of facilities, including the cruise industry and health-related facilities, and just about anything that's out there that we expect that the benefits of the first project will pay off through other facilities. So it's pretty exciting, and I was going to summarize, but why don't you?
Well, let me just add one more, and then please do summarize. If Jim Harris and his colleagues, such as Steve Spivak and colleagues like John Garfinkel, didn't have enough on their plate, Jim has a major commitment in concert with ISSA to go out and do additional fundraising from major organizations, foundations, federal government agencies that should, and I hope will, have an interest in adding to the support to get this research done, to lead to the development of a published standard by ISSA, and ultimately to its application and certification programs. So Jim Harris has set himself a new challenge, together with John Garfinkel and Bill Ballack and myself, to really go out and additionally raise funds to be certain that we have built the right financial support for this significant effort. Jim?
And just to really wrap it up this time, someone asked a question at the ISSA convention last year to the speaker, Newt Gingrich, who gave a great presentation, and there were 6,000 or 7,000 people in the audience. And the question had to do with, what can we do about our schools? There's problems in the schools, there's design problems, there's health problems, and so on. And here's what Newt's answer was. He looked out over the vast audience and he said, this organization should set a clean standard. Now that's the obvious position of an individual who these days is practicing for a better America. So we'll close with that, and we got to move on in our program. You guys did an outstanding job of capturing the essence of this bill. And John, thank you very much. And Steve, and thank you for everybody on both organizations that worked directly on this, and the respective boards that gave us support. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you.